Good morning from LandingAI, and welcome to our Wednesday webinar hosted by Andrea Kropp, my favorite machine learning engineer. Andrea, take it away.
Great. Thank you, Adrian, my favorite webinar host. So we will kind of tag team this event. Please do use the Q&A feature if you have any questions. I do not have a full hour of prepared material, so we definitely have time baked in for discussion and questions. That's the benefit of live versus watching the recording. So thank you for being here live. All right, so if you're not familiar with LandingAI, this is the only kind of about us slide. We are really a pioneer in enterprise AI with a vision-first approach. We've been in the computer vision, visual AI space for about a decade, and we treat every document that we're going to talk about today as an image. So unlike thinking about a document that happened to have some structure to it, we think about it as an image that happens to have some text in it. So we're bringing a fundamentally different technology to intelligent document processing coming from this vision first space. And that's really allowing us to achieve kind of breakthrough differentiated results compared to some other document processing you might be looking at. Our founder and executive chairman is Dr. Andrew Ng. He often does not require an introduction in the data science and machine learning circles. So we've really benefited a lot from his expertise and guidance, and to date have processed about 1 billion images and documents. So a little bit about me. I'm Andrea Kropp. I'm based in Washington State. Have worn a variety of different hats across my career, doing some management consulting, leading technical teams, now doing technology sales. I'm very much self-taught as a data scientist and MLE. When I went to college, it wasn't even offered as a major. So I did do my degrees in chemistry, and my hobbies are tennis and board games. So what are we going to cover today? Got quite a packed agenda. I'm not necessarily going to do them in this order. I was actually still thinking about the order up until about 5 minutes ago. So of course, I want to introduce you to the product, share some of the kind of key use cases by industry, and then I want to take you through a variety of examples. So things that we would consider kind of core, heart of the plate type documents, but also some more difficult edge cases where hopefully you'll be impressed with the ability to extract these difficult documents with advanced charts, multilingual, archival, and handwritten without any sort of schema training. I also want to introduce the user support, where you can go for the documentation, how you can get connected to the community, some of the subscriptions that we have available to get you started. There's always questions about security and what do we do with the data, so we'll definitely touch on those. Um, the demo today the demo we'll do today will use field extraction, so we'll talk a little bit about how to apply an existing schema or how to use some of our tools to create your schema. And then, of course, we are an API first service, so I'll share using the REST API and also our Python package. The demo we're going to do today, we're going to deal with electric bills. I find that it's a nice kind of all audiences demo. Everybody probably has seen an electric bill and is familiar with some of the fields you might extract there. So packed agenda, no promises on the order. Couple of key resources, we'll send these out in the follow-up, but we'll be spending some time in what we call our visual playground. And then there's references here for the Python library and the overall documentation. Okay, I'm not going to spend too much time here telling you what's hard about document processing. If you've ever tried it yourself, you've probably run into one, if not all four of these challenges. If you're new to document processing, hopefully we can leapfrog you past some of these challenges. So typically, setting up a data pipeline is actually really challenging and has required layout-specific training. That can lead to a lot of inconsistency and inaccurate information, especially when key pieces of information are spread across different pages. So something on page 6 refers back to something on page 2. Typically, there's also been lack of traceability, which is, of course, also true if you have human experts just keying in values. And overall, these document processing pipelines are really inefficient when we get into the tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, or millions of documents. So the demo we're going to do today, kind of quick preview, we're going to work with some utility bills, both some nice, clean digital PDFs, and also some user-submitted photographs to show that it doesn't matter what the layout is, doesn't matter if it's a scan, a photograph, an original digital PDF. We can turn that into standardized extractions. And each one of those abstractions is going to have associated with it the visual grounding and a confidence score. And if those words don't mean anything to you yet, they will in about 15-20 minutes. I'll also promote some of the previous demos we did in past webinars. So these are available on our YouTube channel. So this is one dealing with user-supplied personal financial documents. So imagine that you're applying for a loan, you've submitted all of this documentation. What is your bank actually doing with all of these documents that they receive? And we also did a previous fun demo looking at product packaging and trying to pull out information such as, does it claim to be grass-fed? Does it claim to be organic? Does it claim to be antibiotic-free? So we try to mix these demonstrations between documents and photographs in part to show the versatility of the tool. So a couple slides just to introduce the core functionality, and then we'll get over into the demo. So I think the key word on this slide actually is the word instantly. So the example over here in the picture is an accident report statement, right? So car B has rear-ended car A. There's a variety of details about the driver of each of the vehicles, some of the circumstances. Something like this clearly qualifies as a complex document, and under previous document extraction techniques would be really laborious to actually define this kind of three-column layout. So with our document intelligence, we're going to extract, enrich, and process this complex document without any sort of layout-specific training. And we'll see that with those electric bills. What do you get back? You get back developer-friendly JSON. So the JSON output is a nice, clean, hierarchical structure. It's the same for every document, whether it's a PDF, whether it's an image. You're always going to get back that same response. Makes it very easy for developers to work with. Within that JSON response is what we call visual grounding. So the term grounding has kind of emerged with the advent of large language models to say, what is the ground truth? Like, where did this information come from to kind of show that it was not hallucinated by the model in some way. So there's grounding information, and what we call visual grounding is actually referring back to the original picture within the document. So, within this invoice, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 boxes, which will actually be returned to you as pictures. So these are the left, top, right, bottom coordinates for each one of these. And it's going to allow you to develop downstream systems to actually refer back to exactly which page and which section of the page each piece of information came from. And then lastly, schema-driven field extraction. So in our utility example, in many of the examples I'm going to preview, often you're looking for specific information. So if you can see on the right-hand side here, we have things like the date of the accident, whether there were any witnesses, what's the insurance company associated with vehicle A. So you can imagine that type of structured information that you might want to get out of a police report or an accident statement. But these are going to vary, coming from different states and different jurisdictions. So how do we pull those essential key value pairs out of these documents, which somewhere on the page contain the same information, but we need to be able to pull that out. So we're going to use our visual playground to actually build that schema. And then you'll apply that schema together with the REST API or the Python library when you send your document. So let's actually go over to the visual playground. So you see I have a wide variety of tabs open here, so it's going to allow us to kind of go in any order. I am going to start with the website just so that you know exactly how to get to the visual playground yourself. So this is available from the main menu in LandingAI. There's some great information here, which is very similar to what I just shared with you. There's a great intro video from Dr. Andrew Ng. And then if you click this white button, this is how you'll actually be able to try the visual playground yourself. When you click it the first time, it's going to ask you to create an account either in the US or the EU region. So choose whichever one is better for you. And then you will be into an experience that looks something like this. So when you first come inside. So we do have a couple other agentic vision APIs we'll be adding to this over time. Today's webinar deals with our agentic document extraction, by far the most powerful and most popular API that we have. So you'll go ahead and click try it in the playground. So let's see, today we're going to do some electric bills. So I'm going to go ahead and just drop one in here. And we can create a little bit more space. So this is a 4-page document. You can see it's a nice, clean digital save of an electric bill. And you just saw pop up on screen all of the overlaid bounding boxes across all 4 pages. So we call each one of these a chunk. And I can actually kind of click on the user interface here to go kind of chunk by chunk and examine the markdown on the left-hand side. So again, chunk is one of those terms that has kind of come up with the rise of LLMs, and there's a lot of different chunking strategies to prepare documents for downstream retrieval augmented generation. Again, if that's not a term you're familiar with, just know that there are many different chunking strategies, but most of them are very naive. They're going to say, let's just read the document, read left to right, let's split it up like every 100 characters. And they don't have the ability to actually understand the layout of the document in the way that we're tracking it here. So what you're seeing here on the left-hand side is the markdown. And then you saw in the slides that we also provide the JSON response. And this is all an interactive system where you can click on something on the left and the right-hand side will show you that extraction. So it's a really good chance to actually check for accuracy, right? You can zoom in and say, like, I'm looking for this, should be 67.9. Is that actually what I'm getting? Right? It should be over here somewhere. It's easier to verify on the markdown. Yeah, so 6709. So people really have enjoyed this visual experience to check for accuracy, and we've gotten many reports that our accuracy is far superior to other tools that they've tried. So just for fun, let's go ahead and drop that photograph in here as well. So this is just a one-pager, right? Because it's one photograph of that front page. And this will parse in the same way. It's got like a little bit of like an 3-5 degree rotation to it, but that's okay. We can deal with that type of rotation. Sorry, I'm trying to overlay all of the boxes again. So you can see we've got chunks for each section. Here's a nice table, even though it's a little bit skewed and it's a little bit poorly photographed, but we're getting that extraction right on the right-hand side. So this is the fundamental Markdown and JSON output. So let's go look at some code. And I'll switch here over to Visual Studio Code. Okay, and I'm going to clear all of this and I'm going to restart. Okay. So if you are not a developer or not a coder, I am going to be switching between the visual interface and talking about use cases and then talking about like how a developer actually gets started and how easy it is to get started. So even if this portion is not for you, I think you'll appreciate how easy it is to get started. So we do offer a Python library called Agentic Doc. And this is really very simple. We have some very standard Python libraries, and then from our Agentic Doc, we're going to input parse. Imports, not input. I was thinking about my input folders. Um, all right, I need to actually define this. There we go. All right, so I've just loaded an environment variable. You can learn more about this in the documentation. We may cover it later based on the questions. But here you're going to set your API key, which you get from the Visual Playground. And then you're going to set your configuration to kind of maximize your throughput. And hopefully this should work now. Great. Okay, so we've got part one of the demo, some documents in one folder, and part two of the demo. So part one of the demo is the exact same two documents that we just saw in the playground. So we have our electric bill as a PDF and an electric bill as a JPEG. And here's what we're going to do. So we're going to call parse, which is the function that we provide. We're going to pass both of those documents at once. You can actually pass thousands at once. And then we're going to save the results into these two folders. These are optional in terms of whether you want things like, page numbers or things in the header and the footer, but we'll just run the entire response right now. Okay, excellent. My API key is valid. Two documents are being sent, and they are being parsed. So we'll see what's happening here in our results and in our groundings folder. I'm realizing I ran this about half an hour ago just to make sure it works, right? So in our results folder, you've got two versions of the Form D, one about half an hour ago and one just now. And number two hasn't quite come back yet. That one was 4 pages, so it should be coming back shortly. Okay, so here's one that we just got back. So let's go ahead and open this. And then let's look at it in a slightly prettier format. Okay. So here is that pretty developer-friendly JSON that we saw in the Visual Playground. And you can see how easy it is to get started with just the API key, the parse function, and then saving this to my local directory. The other thing we got back, which I promised you, was all of the individual chunks. So let's take a look at this one. So if we click in here, these are now all of the individual chunks that came from our electric bill. So this is going to correspond to the bounding boxes that we saw in the Visual Playground, and these have all now been saved locally. So again, this is an option, right? Like you may be looking at this and saying, well, this is just duplication of data, right? I already had the original. Why do I need these chunks? It's really going to depend on your downstream use case. But we really find that this visual grounding to later be able to say, what was the account number, and then be able to surface the actual box containing the account number for rapid verification is incredibly powerful. This also starts to become relevant when we talk about confidence scores. So you'll also receive a confidence score in how do between 0 and 1, do we think we got the account number right? And of course, as it gets more blurry, more skewed, maybe has some coffee spilled on it, right? Like you may see that confidence score go down, but it's going to allow you to then do some sort of a human in the loop process where you can say, we think the account number is this, the confidence is 72%, but like let's show it to a person for final verification. Okay. And then I printed all of the markdown here on screen was my last statement just to show it printed, but fundamentally this process is not about printing to screen. This is about saving things on your local machine or inserting it downstream. So I should have mentioned, not covered in this notebook are connecting to upstream document sources. Also not covered is spell checking, so I need to fix that. So we have multiple connectors to connect to upstream document sources. So if they're already in an S3 bucket, if they're already in a Snowflake stage, there's lots of connectors for upstream data sources. Um, we are also not looking at inserting those results into downstream systems. So maybe you want to insert into Databricks, maybe you want to insert into Snowflake or into Azure Blob Storage. There's multiple ways to do that. And we're also in this demo, we're not optimizing for throughput because we just had 2 documents. Okay. So we've got to kind of very quickly into like what is the product and how to get started with it. So in the visual playground, you can access your API key over here on the left-hand side. So once you've tried it out in the playground, grab your API key, grab some of our starter code, and you should be off and running very quickly. But let's take a look at some other examples. So I pulled up a couple in advance. Sometimes I get a little carried away with examples because I find some fun document or fun picture, and I was like, "Oh, cool! I'm going to work this into the webinar," and then it gets longer and longer. So I'm going to try to keep these examples brief and tell you why I selected them, and then after this section, we'll take a few questions. So this is an 18-pager. One thing to know is in the visual playground, there is a limit of 50 pages, but there is no limit when you call the API. So if you have something longer than 50 pages, you'll need to truncate it for the visual playground. The reason I like this equity research report is it has nearly every figure type I could possibly think of. So from your standard pie chart and bar chart, and then quite a few other interesting ones. So we've got some, of course, tables, do great job extracting tables. Some interesting spider charts with Porter's 5 forces. Let's see what else we have in here. So a stock movement chart. There are some kind of horizontal bar charts. There are some, I don't even know exactly the technical term for that. But I love this demonstration or this document because it has so many different chart types. And it's a great example of like if you were an equity research analyst and you were covering Expedia, if you may have not have noticed, this was a report on Expedia, the company. You would be able to then kind of chat with this document and then have that visual grounding for like which chart, which pie chart, which line chart, which table, or which text block did that information come from. Um, so I selected this one because it's a nice example of when a document breaks the fundamental layout and where optical character recognition can go wrong. So as a human, you look at this and you say, this is a 3-column layout. But if I take away kind of the like overlay boxes. What happens with a lot of optical character recognition is it doesn't understand this 3-column layout when it's broken by this figure and this caption. And you'll see in the extraction something like the lack of effect of figure 1, 500 milligrams, and it will simply read across, not understanding the layout of the document. So this is just a nice example of like our agentic service really fundamentally understands the human reading order, including when like the main layout is broken with other text. This is one of my favorite examples and starts to get into multilingual. So this is one that I pulled out for like National Macaroni Day, and we did kind of a fun video on all things macaroni related. But I've kept it in my demonstration because it is multilingual. So it's a great way to show that our extraction service works out of the box with many different languages, including with documents that may have mixed languages. Of course, I live in the US and like this was very novel product packaging to have so many languages on one product. This may or may not be as novel to you as it was to me, but great example of multilingual extraction. Here's something, again, a little bit more kind of business oriented. So one of the key segments that we serve is transportation and logistics. So things like certificates of origin, bills of lading. So, being able to detect that this is a table within this larger document. Like, it's not that the whole thing is a table, like the key table portion is this part here in blue. We're also going to be introducing a signature figure type coming very soon. Right now, this is detected as a figure, but in the near future, it will actually detect that as the signature or attestation area. This is kind of getting into some historical documents, but also starting to think about damage, right? So I mentioned, what happens if you spill some coffee on your document. Here's a nice example of where the scan is of particularly low quality along the left-hand edge. I'm not going to read this to you, but trust me that it is actually extracted accurately. Or some examples of spot damage on documents where this extraction, still returns Nicholas, even though that's largely obscured. Let's go through a couple other figures. So I selected this example to really draw attention to the quality of the figure extraction. I talk to people about this all day long. Some of them are really only interested in the text, and some of them are like, wow, the figure detail is really impressive. So here's obviously a complex figure, right? It's talking about kind of dispersal routes of cattle over time. And if you look at the detailed figure extraction that you get back, it actually provides a lot of detail, including a final analysis of the chart. Right, so it says the map shows two main domestication centers, taurine cattle in the Near East and Indocene cattle in South Asia. So we will be introducing in the future the ability to request figure descriptions on or off, because for some people, these are tokens that they're not going to be using. And for others, these are incredibly valuable tokens because it's actually a really challenging task to interpret a figure like this. This was a day that I was inspired by cows. So here's another cow example. But the reason this is in here is to show relationships within the document. So this right here, chunk number 6, you can see this gray area that says 4.1%, but within figure 6, it doesn't tell me what the 4.1% is. But you can see over on the right-hand side, it's 4.1% milk fat percentage, and that's coming from reading this legend up here. And again, I like this example because it's not presented as a traditional legend in a figure. So the agentic system does need to understand these colors and understand that in this infographic, it is referring back up to this information. But now this is going to be much more LLM friendly because for this brown Swiss, you actually have like all of this information extracted together from this text. Okay, I got I can't resist this one. This is just so cool. The illustration instructs the user to always assemble objects on a protective surface to prevent damage and not directly on hard floors. So I love that IKEA, being such an international company, actually has very little text. They are entirely figure driven, and it's a great way to illustrate the quality of the figure descriptions. Okay, I'm going to end with two handwritings and then we'll take some questions. Here's another multilingual example. So I picked this one because I do actually speak German. This is also fairly challenging handwriting. It is clear, but it is of an older style of handwriting. And then here we have an example combining handwriting also with poor image quality. So something like this text block, we've got things like occupation farmer, birthplace Pennsylvania. This is actually very difficult handwriting, and some of the archivists have been particularly excited about if you don't have the ability to go back to the original document and improve the resolution, the ability to still extract accurate information from that. Okay, I need a quick break on talking, so let's see what questions we have, and I'll let Adrian manage the Q&A.
Excellent presentation, and thank you everyone for these great questions. Let's do the first one. Can it be used with complex Excel sheets? For example, those containing multiple or more intricate tables on one sheet. It would be very helpful if you could consider adding this capability.
Yeah, so we get a lot of questions about Excel tables. That functionality is coming soon. So you saw in my example, we're taking in PDFs or images right now. Very soon we'll be taking in docx files and also XLSX files. I'm always curious why people need this service on Excel files because it seems like it should already be in a tabular structure, but we get an awful lot of requests for Excel and it is coming.
Next question. What's the reason the chosen schema works with the UI but not with the Python code?
Oh, it does. We're going to do schema extraction next. So you can actually develop in the UI, take it into Python. You can develop in Python, take it back into the UI. It's entirely interoperable. So if I misled you there, like hopefully I'll clarify it in the next section.
Next question. Is there any meaning of color of box that object detection gives on the GUI?
Oh, yes. There is a meaning to it. So they are the four main types. So green is text. Blue is table, pink is figure, and then down over here, this purple is margin. And right now we have those four types. And like I said, we're going to be introducing signature and a few other types. We're also going to be introducing what we call code, which would be looking for a barcode or a QR code. Right now, those get classified as figure, but in the future, like a barcode or a QR code will no longer be figure, it will be code. So yes, there is a meaning to the color, and I should have mentioned that before.
Excellent. Did it return Nicholas because it knew about the Declaration of Independence, or could it actually visually read it?
Ah, um, I have no way of proving to you one or the other, but this document is actually an Independence Day celebration from 1913. So clearly, most LLMs should have good knowledge of the Declaration of Independence itself. I would be suspect of them knowing like who was the celebration committee in the 1913 celebration. So I'm guessing that it probably actually did read this because this is a document of like a celebration that happened in 1913 to celebrate an anniversary. So I think it probably is getting that right. But thank you for calling me out on that.
And those are the questions.
Okay. Um, Excellent. So let's move into let's go over to support, I guess. Yeah, let's do support. Um, so what you're looking at right now is our documentation. So let me get you there from the library. So from the visual playground. So over here on the left-hand side is documentation. And that's going to bring you to this page. As LandingAI, we do offer multiple products. It's going to default you into Agentic Document Extraction because it's alphabetically the first, but if you're looking for documentation on other things, it's in there as well. So this is going to take you through some of the basics, how to get your API key. There's a couple of different ways to set the API key. And then this will also take you either to the REST API or the Python library documentation. A lot of people don't realize that these two blocks are clickable and are taking them to two different places. So actually, I have these open here. So the REST API um, will take you through, so that block will take you through to this page. So you do have the option here of formatting your request with Python or just as a direct post request. And this will take you through kind of how to configure your authorization and how to configure your query. There's some notes here about, if you want to use an image instead of a PDF, like exactly how you need to change the syntax. But we would highly recommend that you use the Python library if you can. So if you click on the library, it's going to take you through to this page. So this is the library on GitHub. And the reason we prefer the Python library is it has some other features that the REST API doesn't have. So it is a wrapper for the API, but it provides processing support for longer documents. It's going to handle your concurrency and also retries. And it's got a couple other like helper utilities that the base API doesn't have. So you saw in my notebook, I did the pip install here, set my API key as the environment variable, and then there's quite a few examples available for how to get started. I mentioned, some of those upstream and downstream connectors, and so there's more information about those here. Okay, I kind of strayed from support into API and library, so let's go back to support. So from the documentation page, all of the key support options are available on the top here. So there's a community, there's Discord, and there's support. And if you notice, if you click on support, it just brings up the support email, so support at LandingAI. I do want to put in a plug for the Discord community, which I have open here in another tab. So we have a wonderful developer relations specialist, Ankit. He is kind of the manager of this community. He also builds a lot of self-service tools to get you answers faster. So if you do join LandingAI on Discord and you come to start here, there's some information about how to ask questions of the bot. So we do have our bot trained on all of our documentation, so that can be a quick way to get an answer. Of course, we have human help as well, so you can ask a question there. Response times will vary based on your subscription level. And then there is also the opportunity, of course, to chat with other users. So there are probably going on 2,000 users in here, and there's a pretty active chat and community and people sharing code and sharing examples of what they're doing. So this is a great place to get inspiration, get help, and also just pick up ideas. I always pick up a fun idea for a demo by browsing through the Discord. Okay, let's do the feature extraction part that I promised. So let's work with the slightly cleaner electric bill because I think it's easier to see on screen. Okay, so feature extraction. So we've covered parse and the markdown and the JSON. So on feature extraction, there's a couple different ways here to create a schema and then apply it in the API. So I'm actually going to start from the bottom here with the start from scratch. If you already know what you want to do, you can build it up piece by piece in the UI and then apply it. So we'll just start with like customer name. And all right. You have to click over here for it to save it. Okay. So even with just one item, you can then run the schema. So this can be a nice iterative process of add an item, check the extraction. So you'll notice it is getting the value right. There are two chunk references, which means that the customer name appears in at least two places in the document. So that's helpful. And then this is also where in your description you could add things like do not include Mr. or Mrs., like do include suffixes like, the third or junior, but don't include like MS, PhD. So know that the description will help you refine exactly what you want in the customer name field. Okay. So once you've created a schema, you can then actually view that for use with the API. So this is the version using the Pydantic structure. And this is the version using pure JSON. And we'll do this together in my notebook in just a moment. But anything that you develop in the UI, you can then click on this code button and you can get it either as Pydantic or as JSON to then take out of the UI. Another thing you can do is if we go to start over, we can use the smart suggestion. So I'm just going to click start with suggestions. And this now auto-populated quite a few different fields. And notice they're also in subcategories. So this is now a nested schema where, some of this account information, such as customer name, account number, are grouped together as an object under account information. Currently, our extraction supports one level of nesting, so don't go crazy with the nesting with like 5 and 6 levels of nesting. But here we have, account information. You can see the customer name is the same as the one I had done, and some other like account level information. So this can be really helpful. Again, we can export this, and actually, I'm going to use this one in a second. So I'm going to copy this and put it in my notebook. And then we'll do one more thing. Yes, so here, paste Pydantic schema from Visual Playground. So I'm going to paste that. Okay. Okay. And then the last thing we can do here, if we click start over, is I can actually upload my own schema. I find that this is a little bit hidden behind the 3 dots here. So like upload JSON schema is an option. And here I have one called utilities. There it is. So if I've prepared this in advance, I can upload this schema and then apply it. So that's a little bit hidden, the upload schema. But to go back to that question about like, why do these things not work together? Hopefully that shows that they do work together. You can develop in the UI and then copy and take it out. You can also develop somewhere else and import and bring it in. Okay. And then something here like the account number has like 5 different references to it. Okay, so let's continue with the notebook example. So here we're going to define a custom schema. This is using the Pydantic option, and so I did choose the Pydantic option from the Visual Playground, and I pasted it in here. So down here at the bottom, I just need to make sure it's actually going to work with my file. So I need to change this to file paths. We'll just send the first document, and that now should work. So okay, so what's happening right now is we are reparsing the document. So the parse happens first and then the extract. So with our current API, if you want to change your schema, you have to repeat the parsing process. And we've gotten a lot of feedback that that is not a desirable workflow, including from all of us internally to say this doesn't make sense. So coming very soon, as in probably next week sometime, we will have a separate ADE parse and a separate ADE extract, which is going to allow you to parse once and then test multiple extraction schemas, so you don't need to reparse the document. So what we just did as of today to apply this schema, I did have to parse again to apply the schema. And oh yeah. Okay. The first couple of fields were blank, and then I was like, oh, this was only an electric bill, not a gas bill. So like all the gas related stuff was empty, but it kind of scared me for a moment. But here we've got our customer name, account number, and so on and so forth. Um, so this now is demonstrating the second option. So you saw me upload this utilities.json. So I've basically just copied that extraction schema into this cell. So this is the other option for a JSON schema. You could, of course, read this from an external file, but now we've basically got this statement. So I'm going to, again, parse that first file, and my extraction schema is the one defined above. I realize I need to execute this or it's going to give me an error. So now this is the other option. So these are identical processes, whether you want to use Pydantic or JSON. They're both available in the Visual Playground, and they will both work with the API. Okay, and so while we're here, let's do a larger chunk. So folder 2 has more examples in it. So folder 2, I guess, has about, what is that, 9 documents. So here we're going to send all 9 documents with that extraction schema. And this is really where you'll start to see kind of the throughput power. We can send up to 100 documents at once, or sorry, you can make an API call for thousands of documents, but the first 100 can start processing simultaneously. And then as one of those finishes, the next one in the queue will be automatically picked up. So sometimes when we demonstrate one document, it seems like the wall time is rather long for one document. But knowing that I could have sent 100 here, then the wall time starts to actually appear very fast on a per document basis. So here we're processing all of these simultaneously. I don't need to actually print. Okay, the results are not quite done yet. I'm getting ahead of myself. Um, we'll just let that finish while I take a sip of water. How are we on time? Okay. Okay, we're on number 6 of 9. Let's cover a few other things and then come back to this. All right. Other things I had open here is security. So we get a lot of questions about what do you do with our documents and what are the security options. So this particular page is available from the footer on our website. So on any public page down here in the right-hand corner, security and compliance, that's the page that I'm on. So we are compliant with some very strict data privacy frameworks. So SOC 2 compliant, HIPAA compliant, GDPR compliant. So even if you're not in the healthcare space or not in the EU, hopefully that gives you just a sense for the kind of level of security and privacy and attention to these topics that we are compliant with these more stringent frameworks. So typically, people will send their legal counsel or their IT department just access to this page to take a look at it. I'm just going to draw attention to a few areas. So in terms of data encryption, everything is encrypted in transit and at rest. For data segregation, if you're using our multi-tenant cloud service, your data is not commingled with anybody else's data. And then probably most important on this page is the zero data retention. So zero data retention kind of offers you the highest privacy. With this option, your data is processed in memory and is never stored by our systems or any of our subprocessors. So this is going to allow you kind of the confidence that sensitive documents are used only for the extraction process and are immediately discarded. So typically when we get into security conversations, people are asking us, what would it take to install on-prem? What would it take to put it in my virtual cloud? And then once they realize that we have this zero data retention for our multi-tenant SaaS, often that really kind of clears all of those roadblocks and says, okay, the SaaS is so much easier to get started with, easier maintenance over time. And this is fundamentally what we were looking for, is that you don't save our data, none of the sub-processors save our data, and the data is only used for the extraction process and immediately thrown away. So definitely take a look at this information. There's some more information here about which regions we're processing in, and down at the bottom, more information about any sub-processors and a place to request our actual certifications. Just briefly, especially since Adrian also mentioned how to contact sales. If you are in a segment where you cannot use our multi-tenant SaaS, we do have a couple other options for which you'd need to contact our sales team. So we will steer everyone toward the cloud version. It's fast to get started. It's the most economical for you. We can also offer a single tenant SaaS. We can also deploy in your cloud, so AWS, Azure, GCP. And there is a version of Agentic Document Extraction entirely inside Snowflake. So if you're a Snowflake customer, this can be an excellent option for you. So the first one here is preferred. We would ask you to take a look at that zero data retention, see if that's going to be sufficient. And if not, these other three options are available. Okay, let me take a few questions and this is done running. So let's take a few questions and then we'll kind of wrap it up here.
Excellent. Great question. Why does the schema chosen in the UI fail to execute properly in the Python implementation?
Did it not execute correctly? I'm sorry, I don't understand that question if that's like related to my demo or something that you've tried on your own. So maybe you can clarify.
Okay. Or if the user could rephrase that question, that would be helpful. And the next question is supports only one level of nesting in the automatic schema generation or in general? Does that make sense?
Both. The automatic schema will only give you one level of nesting because the API is only going to work with one level of nesting. So if you have more nesting, you'll need to unnest that.
Okay. And then just circling back to the first one, the user um, just posted he had tried it on that particular person had tried it on their own, so I guess it didn't work. But we can take
Okay.
that offline. We can follow up with you.
Yeah, if you
Um,
try it on your own, like contact support or post it in the Discord channel, and we'll take a look at your schema.
and that's it for now for questions.
Okay. So this was kind of the end result we wanted to get to. So this was a larger batch of documents with a schema applied. So we've got a nice structured table. And then the last demo here, of course, we can export that locally. That's not very fancy. And then the last demo here is I wanted to draw attention to some of the metadata. So you saw in the visual playground that there are the chunk references. What you did not see in the visual playground are the confidence scores. So the confidence scores are actually only available through the API, and they are in the metadata section. So here, just as a demonstration, I've pulled out just the account number and the invoice total. And so I've put the account number next to the chunk reference for the account number, and then the that looks like no confidence, but it's really account number confidence. Um, Put that confidence score, which is going to be a number between 0 and 1. This is still an experimental feature, so you can see like a couple of the confidences are coming back as not a number, so we'll have to troubleshoot that. But this is a great way to kind of set a sliding scale to say, okay, like if it's 0.99, we don't need human verification, but maybe like a 0.86 on a critical value, you could surface that number for human verification. And I think we were showing that at the beginning. So in this demo, we've got the fields that are extracted And then each of those fields also has metadata associated with it, including this confidence. Okay. The last thing we have not covered, I guess, is the subscriptions area. So let's go ahead and end here. So this particular page is available from pricing in kind of the main header up here. So just choose Agentic Document Extraction. When you create a new account, you're going to get 1,000 free credits, and then you're going to use credits as you parse and as you extract. You can remain a pay-as-you-go customer forever and just reload credits as needed. As you choose higher subscription tiers, you will get more bang for your buck, right? So rather than $1 buys 100 credits, up at this level, $1 buys 130 credits. So you're getting about 30% more. And these are drop-down options with a couple different options. We consider our enterprise segment anybody who's spending more than about $5,000 a month with us or who needs some of those hosting options that we described earlier. So by all means, contact us if you're what we call sub-enterprise and you're having difficulties. But if you are looking at volumes that would put you at more than 5,000 spend per month, we definitely want to meet you and develop a custom plan for you. The thing I will draw attention to is the zero data retention. Many of the customers we're talking to are asking about zero data retention, and that does require coming in at least a team level subscription. So the zero data retention is not available for pay-as-you-go, but it is going to require this kind of first level subscription, which is just a month-by-month subscription. Then in terms of credit usage, now we're back in the documentation down at the very bottom here in pricing and billing. We get a lot of questions about like the costs associated, the credit costs associated with different features. So right now we just have parse and extract, but we will be adding more over time. So this right now are the 3 actions which will actually consume credits. So parsing at 3 credits per page, field extraction at 3 credits per page, and zero data retention at 1 credit per page. So this is also a reason why you want to parse once and extract many times to be more economical with your credits. But this is a very common combination, which then amounts to 7 credits per page. So I think that is what I've got for today. That was the wrong slide. I'll just go back to my cover slide here. So we can take a few more questions, and otherwise, thank you for spending part of your morning or afternoon with us, and I hope you learned some new things, realized how easy it is to get started, and I hope you find some like really interesting documents to put through the playground that are more fun than my macaroni example, which is still my favorite.
And that's a wrap. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. Andrea, super educational session and very insightful. And just backing up on our housekeeping, we will send out the recording tomorrow. Again, this is a weekly webinar series going through October 8th. You can sign up for as many sessions as you'd like. And then we'll start posting some of the use cases that we'll be covering. And again, just to reiterate, if you would like to talk to us today, please send an email to sales@landing.ai, or else we'll have a Zoom scheduler tomorrow for you to follow up with. I'm sorry, for you to schedule time if you'd like to talk to our use case with our product team. Thank you for your time. Have a great Wednesday.